Tonight we walk together into a silence that predates your name, into a chamber where the idea of peace was first shaped like clay between careful hands. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison. And yet long after such myths fade, something quieter survives. The agreement not to destroy one another. You are not standing in a modern hall of glass and microphones. You are standing on packed earth beneath a high Tartarian sky, where treaties are not paper yet, but memory, breath, and fear held steady. So before I tell you today's story, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications for future clips and give me some encouragement. As you settle in, I invite you to post your local location and the time you're listening from so this night can feel shared across the world. Now, let's begin our journey tonight. You feel it immediately, the weight of stillness. Not the stillness of sleep, but the kind that comes before a decision that can save thousands or doom them. Around you, elders sit in a wide circle. No one speaks quickly, no one interrupts. In Tartarian tradition, words are not thrown, they are placed. And once placed, they cannot be easily taken back. This is where diplomacy begins, not as strategy, not as power, but as restraint. You sense it in the way warriors leave their weapons outside the circle, in the way horses are tethered far from the fire. Violence is possible here, but forbidden. That distinction matters. Even today, you know it does. Modern diplomacy still depends on places where violence could happen, but must not. You are told quietly that a treaty older than memory is being renewed tonight. Not written, not archived, but remembered. It is an agreement between rival clans to respect winter borders, to allow passage during famine, to return messengers unharmed. Simple ideas, you think, and yet every modern diplomatic principle is already sleeping inside them. Why do nations still sign documents instead of trusting goodwill? Why do they insist on witnesses, seals, ceremonies? You begin to understand, because trust fades, memory fades, but ritual anchors intention. In Tartaria, a treaty is not just an agreement between leaders. It is a promise made to the land itself. Rivers are named aloud. Mountains are invoked as silent witnesses. If one side breaks the vow, it is not merely betrayal of people, but of the world that heard it. Modern diplomacy no longer speaks to mountains, yet it still invokes something larger than individuals. International order, global norms, the community of nations, different words, same need. You notice how carefully the speakers choose their phrases. Nothing is absolute, nothing is careless. As long as the rivers run, until the third generation, unless the sky itself changes. These clauses sound poetic, almost sleepy, but they are precise. They allow flexibility without chaos. Isn't that what modern treaties still do? Escape clauses, review periods, conditions triggered by change. As the fire crackles, you sense something unsettling. These people understand that peace is temporary. They do not dream of eternal harmony. They plan for tension, for misunderstanding, for future anger. And that realism is what keeps them alive. You realize something else. Diplomacy is born not from kindness, but from exhaustion. Wars have already happened here. Blood has already soaked the grass. Treaties are what remain when everyone is too tired to continue killing, but too afraid to disarm completely. Does that sound familiar? It should. Every modern ceasefire echoes this moment. A figure rises, an elder whose voice is soft but unchallenged. He reminds both sides of the last time the treaty was broken. He does not accuse, he narrates. This is important. Story is evidence here. Memory is law. In modern courts, documents serve this role. In ancient diplomacy, collective memory does. You feel the subtle power of shame. No punishment is threatened. No army is summoned. Instead, the story itself presses on the listeners. Breaking a treaty does not only risk retaliation, it risks being remembered as unreliable. Reputation, you realize, is one of the oldest currencies in diplomacy. Today, nations call it credibility. Then it was called honor. Same weight, different costume. As night deepens, the agreement is spoken aloud. Line by line, each side repeats it. Not once, but 3 times. Why 3? Because 1 can be forgotten, 2 can be disputed, 3 settles into the body. Modern diplomats still do this, though they hide it behind signatures, ratifications, confirmations. Repetition is how intent becomes reality. You think of the United Nations, of summits and charters, of carefully staged photographs. You can almost see through them now, back to this circle of firelight. The stage has changed, the principle has not. A child is brought forward, not as a hostage yet, but as a listener. The elder explains that the child must hear the treaty, because one day it will be his duty to remember it. Here is succession planning before bureaucracy. Treaties are designed to outlive leaders. That idea survives intact in modern diplomacy, where agreements bind governments, not personalities. You feel a strange calm. The voices are slow, the pauses are long. This is not excitement. This is containment. Diplomacy, you realize, is the art of slowing things down, of preventing emotion from outrunning consequence. Even today, emergency summits, cooling-off periods, diplomatic channels exist for this reason. To buy time, time to think, time to breathe. The elder finally asks the question that seals everything. Do you accept the burden of peace? Not the benefit, the burden. Because peace requires constant maintenance, patrols, messengers, compromises. The answer is yes, but it is a heavy yes. As the circle dissolves, you notice something unsettling again. There is no celebration, no cheers, no sense of victory, only relief. Peace in its oldest form is not triumph, it is survival without further loss. Perhaps that is why modern treaties feel so cold, so technical. They are not meant to inspire, they are meant to prevent collapse. You walk away from the fire and the night air cools your thoughts. You begin to see modern diplomacy differently. Not as a cynical game, but as a fragile inheritance. Every clause, every protocol, every awkward handshake carries echoes of this ancient night. And yet, a question lingers, rocking gently like a cradle-song thought. If diplomacy has always been about restraint, why does it so often fail? Is it because the principles are flawed, or because remembering is harder than fighting? As you drift deeper into this story, you understand that Tartarian treaties were not erased because they were ineffective. They were erased because they worked quietly without spectacle. And quiet things are easy to forget. But you are remembering now, and that, perhaps, is where diplomacy truly begins. You move forward without noticing the step, because there is no sharp break between moments. The fire from the last circle still warms your back as you enter another space, quieter, narrower, filled not with faces but with objects. Tonight, the language of seals and silence reveals itself to you. You are about to learn why so much of diplomacy is not spoken at all. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and yet here, in this almost forgotten Tartarian chamber, another truth hums beneath the surface. Words alone are dangerous. They drift. They mutate. They betray intention. So the ancients learned to bind words to symbols, and symbols to ritual, and ritual to consequence. You notice a long table carved from a single slab of dark wood. On it lie seals, metal, stone, bone, each marked with signs you do not fully recognize, yet somehow understand. These are not decorations. They are identities pressed into matter. Each seal represents a lineage, a city, a confederation. To press one into wax or clay is to say, this is not just me speaking. It is to say those before me and those after me are bound as well. You realize how little this has changed. Modern treaties still carry seals, stamps, emblems, flags in the background. Presidents sign not with personal marks, but with institutional authority. The pen is small, but the symbol is enormous. Why do nations still care so deeply about where a signature is placed, what colour ink is used, who stands behind the signer? Because symbolism stabilizes meaning. In Tartaria, silence plays an equal role. After a clause is spoken, no one rushes to respond. The pause is intentional. Silence here is not emptiness, it is verification. It allows every listener to test the words against memory, against custom, against fear. You think of modern press conferences, where silence feels awkward, even threatening. But ancient diplomacy trusted silence more than speech. A scribe enters, but not as you expect. He does not write during the negotiation. He listens. Only after consensus settles like dust does he begin to carve the agreement into a medium meant to endure. Stone, copper, cured hide. Drafting comes after agreement, not before. Today, drafts multiply endlessly before consensus ever forms. You wonder quietly if something was lost in that reversal. The elder explains, almost in a whisper, that once a seal touches the surface, the treaty becomes harder to break than a sword. Breaking it invites not only retaliation, but cosmic imbalance. You may not believe in that cosmology, but you recognize the modern version immediately. Sanctions, isolation, reputational collapse. Different myth, same mechanism. You notice something subtle and unsettling. Not every clause is written. Some are intentionally left unwritten, preserved only through oral tradition. Why? Because writing freezes meaning while memory allows adaptation. Modern diplomacy struggles with this. Treaties age, circumstances shift, lawyers argue over interpretation. The Tartarians anticipated this problem by allowing part of the agreement to breathe. Is that why modern treaties are filled with ambiguity? Is that why phrases like good faith, reasonable measures, and mutual understanding appear again and again? Perhaps they are echoes of those unwritten clauses still trying to survive inside rigid documents. You watch as a seal is pressed slowly, deliberately into warm wax. Everyone leans forward. This is the moment of no return. There is no applause, only a collective exhale. The seal does not say I agree, it says I accept consequence. That distinction matters. Diplomacy is not about promises, it is about accountability. You are shown an older seal, cracked and repaired. The elder tells you it once marked a treaty that failed, not because the seal broke, but because the people forgot what it represented. That failure led to war, famine, migration. The seal was repaired not to hide the failure, but to remember it. Modern diplomacy hides its failures in classified archives. Tartaria displayed them as warnings. You think about how modern states obsess over wording, commas, definitions, annexes. Here the obsession is with intent. The seal guarantees intent more than precision. Could that be why so many modern agreements feel hollow? Perfectly worded, yet spiritually empty. The night deepens, the chamber grows colder. You sense that this is not just history but instruction. Diplomacy survives not because humans are good, but because humans fear disorder more than compromise. Seals make fear visible. Silence makes fear manageable. As you leave the chamber, you realize something quietly profound. Modern diplomacy did not invent its tools. It inherited them, refined them, disguised them in legal language. But beneath every signature, beneath every stamped document, the ancient logic remains. Bind words to something heavier than emotion. And as you drift onward, another question settles gently beside you, like a thought meant for sleep. If seals and symbols carry so much power, what happens when people stop believing in them? You do not answer, you simply walk on, you do not notice the moment when witnesses begin to matter, because they are already there. They have always been there. You feel their presence before you see them. Figures standing at the edge of the gathering, elders, traders, travellers, even rivals invited deliberately to watch. Tonight, sacred oaths are not private promises, they are public events designed to be remembered by many minds at once. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in the same quiet way you sense another containment system at work here. Not walls, not chains, but visibility. To be seen agreeing is to be trapped by your own image. Tartarian diplomacy understands this, Deba. An elder speaks again, slowly, deliberately. He reminds you that an oath whispered can be denied, but an oath witnessed becomes heavy. It follows you. It walks behind you like a shadow that lengthens with time. Modern diplomacy still obeys this law. Treaties are signed before cameras, summits are staged, joint statements are read aloud. Why? Because the world itself must become the witness. You notice how carefully witnesses are chosen. They are not all allies. Some are neutral, some are skeptical, some are potential enemies. This is not kindness. This is strategy. An oath observed by many sides limits future lies. It creates a shared memory that cannot be easily rewritten. You think of modern international observers, monitoring missions, press pools, different costumes, same function. The oath itself is spoken now, not rushed, not embellished. Each phrase is balanced between humility and firmness. We swear to uphold. We swear to restrain. We swear to return. The repetition lulls you like waves against a shore. But beneath the rhythm is something sharp. Oaths are dangerous. They summon consequence. You feel the weight of belief here. The Tartarians believe that breaking an oath invites misfortune, not instantly, not dramatically, but inevitably. Crops fail, children fall ill, allies disappear. Whether or not you believe this cosmology, you recognize its modern equivalent immediately. Markets collapse, trust evaporates, isolation spreads, The universe no longer needs gods to punish oath breakers. Systems do it automatically. A pause follows the oath, a long one, no one moves. This silence is essential. It allows the witnesses to internalize what they have heard. Memory is being planted deliberately, like seed grain. In modern times, this moment is filled with applause, flashes, handshakes. But the purpose is the same, to lock the moment into collective awareness. You realize something subtle. Witnesses are not there to protect the weak from the strong. They are there to protect the future from the present. When leaders change, when tempers flare, when circumstances shift, witnesses remain as anchors. This is why modern treaties outlive administrations. This is why continuity matters more than charisma. A child is asked to repeat a single line of the oath, not the whole thing, just one promise. The crowd listens carefully. If a child can remember it, the oath is considered sound. If not, it is revised. Simplicity is not weakness here, it is durability. You think of modern legal language, dense and inaccessible, and you wonder quietly who it truly serves. You're shown an old story. Long ago, a Tartarian leader swore an oath in secret, without witnesses, to secure advantage. It worked briefly, then it unraveled completely. When challenged, no one could confirm his words. His allies denied him, his enemies exposed him. He was not defeated in battle, but erased from trust. The lesson lingers in the air. Modern diplomacy still fears this fate. That is why secret treaties cause scandal. That is why leaks matter. That is why legitimacy depends not only on agreement, but on recognition. An unseen promise is fragile. A witnessed one becomes real. As the gathering disperses, you notice how witnesses carry the treaty with them. Not written, not sealed, but alive. Each one becomes a walking archive. Today, archives are buildings. Then they were people. And perhaps they still are, in quieter ways. You feel the night soften, the tension eases. But a question drifts beside you, slow and gentle, like something meant to be pondered before sleep. If legitimacy depends on witnesses, what happens when the world stops paying attention? You do not answer. You keep walking deeper into the story where borders themselves begin to form. You feel the shift before you see it. The circle of people dissolves into open land, and suddenly the treaty is no longer about words or oaths, but about space. Borders appear not as walls, but as understandings carried in the body. Tonight, you trace lines that are drawn with breath and ink, and you begin to understand why boundaries have always been both invisible and absolute. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and standing here, between river and plain, you sense another enclosure, one humans willingly accept. A border is not a fence, it is an agreement to stop. An elder gestures toward the horizon. He does not point to a line you can see, he names landmarks instead. From the bend of the river where the water slows, to the lone stone that casts no shadow at noon, until the trees thin and the wind changes voice. Borders here are stories mapped onto terrain. They are remembered through movement, not measurement. You realize how modern this feels. Even today, borders are defined by coordinates, rivers, ridgelines. Satellites replace elders, but the principle is unchanged. A border only exists if both sides agree it exists. Otherwise, it is just land. You walk with a small group, reenacting the boundary as part of the treaty. This is crucial. To agree on a border, one must walk it, feel it, argue over it, compromise along it. Modern diplomacy still does this through joint commissions, demarcation teams, monitoring patrols. Maps alone are not enough. Experience seals agreement. There is no claim of ownership here in the modern sense. Instead, there is acknowledgement of use. Who grazes where, who crosses during drought, who fishes which season. The border breathes. It tightens in times of danger and loosens in times of need. You think of modern border regimes, visas, corridors, humanitarian exceptions. Again, the echo's unmistakable. A dispute arises quietly. One side claims the river has shifted, the other agrees, but insists the spirit of the border has not. They pause, they consult witnesses, they revisit old stories. The solution is not to freeze the border in time, but to update it together. Modern diplomacy struggles with this. Climate change, rising seas, moving rivers force renegotiation. The Tartarians already understood this necessity. You sense the danger beneath this calm process. Borders are where treaties most often fail. Misunderstanding here leads to war faster than any insult. That is why Tartarian diplomacy invests so much care in them. Precision without rigidity, flexibility without chaos. An elder warns that a border ignored becomes a wound. Crossed too often, it bleeds. Defended too harshly, it festers. The wisdom feels almost biological. You realize borders are treated like skin. Protective, sensitive, alive. You notice something else. Borders are always reciprocal. One side's edge is the other's edge too. There is no unilateral border in Tartarian thought. That idea survives today in international law, where recognition matters more than declaration. You can draw any line you want on a map, but without recognition, it is meaningless. As night deepens, markers are placed. Not walls, but signs. Stones stacked carefully. Carvings refreshed. These are reminders, not barriers. Modern borders are increasingly fortified, surveilled, electrified. You wonder if this reflects a loss of trust or simply a louder expression of an ancient fear. You leave the boundary with tired legs and a quieter mind. You now understand why borders dominate diplomacy. They are where peace touches daily life. They determine who belongs where, who moves freely, who must ask permission. And as you walk away, a soft question follows you, like a lullaby half remembered. If borders are agreements to stop, what happens when no one remembers why they stopped there? You carry that thought with you as the story flows onward. You do not expect the next lesson to feel so human. After borders, after land and lines, you are led into a smaller, more intimate space. Here, diplomacy breathes through people themselves. Tonight, you meet the hostage who becomes a bridge, and you begin to understand why security has always required trust made flesh. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in this dim firelight you see another kind of containment. Not chains, not walls, but responsibility placed gently, unbearably onto living bodies. A young man stands between two groups. He is calm but not relaxed. He is not a prisoner, yet he is not free. He is a guarantee. In Tartarian diplomacy, hostages are not taken in rage. They are exchanged in peace. That difference matters. This is not punishment. This is insurance. You learn that he comes from a respected family. That is essential. A hostage without value is meaningless. His safety binds both sides. Harm him, and the treaty collapses. Protect him, and trust deepens. Modern diplomacy still uses this logic, though it hides it behind terms like security guarantees, peacekeeping forces, and confidence-building measures. You notice how carefully he is treated. He eats with elders. He is taught language and custom. He is not humiliated. Why? Because the goal is not domination. The goal is integration. Over time, hostages often become ambassadors, translators, intermediaries. The bridge becomes permanent. You think of modern exchange programs, foreign students, embedded advisors, soft power they call it now. But the ancient mechanism is the same. Familiarity reduces fear. Presence discourages betrayal. An elder explains that a treaty without a human guarantee is fragile. Words can be twisted, seals can be broken. But harming someone you know, someone you have fed and protected, requires a different kind of cruelty. Hostages raise the emotional cost of war. You feel the weight of this practice. It is uncomfortable. It asks individuals to carry collective risk. Yet modern systems still do this, just abstractly. Soldiers stationed abroad, diplomats living under threat, civilians caught in buffer zones. Someone always becomes the bridge. A story is told softly. Long ago a treaty failed, and a hostage was returned unharmed despite the betrayal. Why? Because harming him would have poisoned future diplomacy. Restraint preserved possibility. Even in failure, principles mattered. You begin to see the pattern. Tartarian diplomacy is not about eliminating conflict. It is about containing it, channeling it, preventing it from becoming irreversible. Hostages are one such channel. As the night cools, the young man is led away, not in chains but with ceremony. His departure is watched carefully. His safety is proof that the treaty is alive. Modern diplomacy still watches these signs: troop withdrawals, prisoner exchanges, symbolic gestures. Trust is measured through action, not words. You walk on, feeling both uneasy and enlightened, and a quiet question settles into you, gentle as sleep. If peace requires human bridges, who are we willing to place in between? You do not answer. The road continues. You notice the rhythm change as the path widens. After hostages and human bridges, Diplomacy stretches outward again, following movement rather than stillness. Tonight you walk the trade routes and you begin to feel how commerce quietly becomes the bloodstream of peace. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory. Humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and as your feet press into the dust of this ancient road, you sense another system of control, far subtler. Not force, not fear, but dependence, wherein trade makes enemies pause because breaking peace would mean breaking supply. Caravans pass you slowly. Their pace is deliberate, almost ceremonial. Goods are not rushed here. Silk, salt, grain, metals, ideas, all move together. In Tartarian diplomacy, trade routes are never neutral. They are negotiated spaces, protected by treaty, guarded not only by warriors but by shared interest. You learn that safe passage is one of the earliest diplomatic promises. No harm to those who carry goods, no theft along agreed roads, no toll beyond what is named. These clauses sound simple, but they shape entire regions. Modern trade agreements still revolve around the same ideas: access, tariffs, guarantees, enforcement. You notice markers along the road, stones, poles, symbols etched into trees. They are not advertisements. They are assurances, signs that say, this route is recognized, this passage is protected, this traveller is under treaty law. Even today, shipping lanes, air corridors and trade zones are marked to serve the same purpose. Commerce needs predictability to survive. An elder explains quietly that trade routes soften borders. They do not erase them, but they perforate them. Where goods flow, dialogue follows. Where dialogue follows, violence hesitates. You think of modern globalization of ports and pipelines, of why economic interdependence is often said to prevent war, and why when it fails, collapse is so painful. A dispute arises when a caravan is delayed. No weapons are drawn. Instead, negotiators meet. The question is not who is right, but who depends on whom. Diplomacy here is arithmetic, not ideology. If this road closes, who starves? Who loses prestige? Who gains nothing from conflict? These calculations still dominate modern diplomacy, though they wear the mask of policy papers and forecasts. You feel the tension beneath the calm. Trade routes are valuable. That makes them dangerous. They attract bandits, armies, empires. Tartarian treaties recognize this and respond not with militarization, but shared responsibility. Multiple clans patrol together. Shared protection creates shared ownership. You realize something quietly profound. Modern alliances often begin with trade. Economic blocs precede military ones. Trust is tested first through exchange, not defense. The Tartarians already knew this. They let peace ride on wagons long before it marched with flags. As night settles over the road, fires flicker along the route, space just close enough to be seen from one to the next. A chain of light, a reminder that safety is collective. Break one link and darkness spreads. You continue walking, lulled by the steady pace of commerce, and a gentle question drifts beside you like a drowsy thought. If trade is diplomacy in motion, what happens when the roads fall silent? You let the question fade with the sound of hooves and wheels as the story carries you onward. You feel the mood sharpen as the road narrows again. Trade gives way to risk and movement gives way to vulnerability. Tonight you stand beside the envoys, those who walk unarmed between enemies, and you begin to understand why diplomacy survives only when messengers are protected. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison. And watching these figures step forward, you sense another paradox. Power depends on communication, yet communication requires exposure. Without immunity, no one would dare speak. An envoy prepares to leave camp. He carries no weapon. His clothing is simple, but marked with symbols recognized by all sides. These marks are not decoration. They are shields. Harm him, and you declare yourself outside the order of treaties. Even enemies respect this boundary, because without it, diplomacy collapses into silence. You notice how carefully his route is announced in advance. Transparency is protection. Modern diplomacy still does this. Diplomatic pouches, protected convoys, declared channels. The idea of immunity did not arise from kindness, but from necessity. Kill the messenger once and messages stop forever. A story is told softly. Long ago, an envoy was harmed in anger. The retaliation was not immediate, but absolute. No messengers were accepted from that clan again. Isolation followed. Trade slowed. Allies drifted away. The punishment was not war, but silence. In modern terms, this is diplomatic isolation, sanctions, expulsion. Same consequence, older logic. You realize how fragile this system is. Immunity exists only because everyone agrees it should. It is a collective illusion, constantly reinforced. Modern diplomats still rely on this shared belief. When it cracks, chaos follows. The envoy returns days later, unharmed. His survival is celebrated quietly, not with cheers, but with relief. Communication has been preserved, peace remains possible. You think of modern crises, of back channels and emergency hotlines. When leaders speak, even secretly, war hesitates. You walk on, aware now that diplomacy is less about strength than about protecting the weak links that make strength unnecessary. And a soft question lingers as the night deepens. If messengers are no longer safe, how long until words themselves become weapons? You let the thought fade as the journey continues. You sense the cold before it touches your skin. The air changes, thins, sharpens. Fires are smaller here, voices quieter. Tonight you witness non-aggression under a winter moon, and you begin to understand why restraint is often the most difficult promise to keep. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and beneath this pale Tartarian moon, you feel another kind of containment at work. Not conquest, not alliance, but the deliberate decision not to strike. Two groups face one another across open ground. They are armed, they are capable, they do not trust each other, and yet they are here to promise stillness. A non-aggression pact is not friendship, it is mutual exhaustion formalized. You notice how the language changes tonight. The treaty does not describe what will be done, but what will not be done. No first strike, no raids across winter borders, no harbouring of enemies. Modern diplomacy still echoes this pattern: ceasefires, de-escalation zones, arms limitation agreements. Peace begins as subtraction. An elder explains that winter is when mistakes become fatal. A single skirmish can spiral into starvation. A single raid can collapse trade. That is why restraint is seasonal, conditional, reviewed. You think of modern temporary agreements, renewable ceasefires, confidence-building pauses. The rhythm is ancient. Witnesses watch carefully as weapons are laid down, but not surrendered. This matters. A non-aggression pact does not disarm fear, it suspends it. Both sides remain capable, both sides remain cautious. The balance itself is the deterrent. You recognize the modern echo immediately. Deterrence theory, mutually assured destruction, uneasy stability. A clause is spoken softly, violations will not be answered instantly. There will be inquiry, witnesses will be consulted, proportional response will be discussed. This is astonishingly modern. The idea that reaction must be delayed, measured, justified. This is the backbone of contemporary international law. You feel the tension in your chest. Restraint requires patience. Patience requires trust. Trust requires memory. Break the chain anywhere, and violence returns. That is why these pacts are renewed often, spoken again and again, like lullabies against fear. As the moon rises higher, both sides withdraw slightly, increasing distance. Space itself becomes part of the agreement. Buffer zones are born not from maps, but from instinct. Modern demilitarized zones follow the same logic. Distance cools intention. You realize something quietly unsettling. Non-aggression pacts do not eliminate war. They postpone it. They buy time for trade, for harvest, for children to grow. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps diplomacy has never promised eternity, only delay. You walk away under the winter moon, feeling the weight of promises not to act, and a gentle question drifts beside you, slow and drowsy. If peace is often just delayed violence, how precious is the time it buys? You do not answer. You keep walking into the tents of those who judge. You enter a quieter space now, softer than the standoff under the winter moon. The air is warmer, the voice is lower. Here, conflict does not face itself directly. It is redirected. Tonight, you step into the tent of the third party who judges, and you begin to understand how mediation was born. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in this neutral enclosure, you sense another kind of design. A place removed just enough from power to feel safe, yet close enough to matter. The mediators are not the strongest nor the weakest. They are respected for something more fragile: restraint. Their power comes from not needing to win. They listen longer than they speak. When they do speak, they quote memory, not opinion. Modern mediators still do this, invoking precedent, past agreements, shared norms. You notice how the disputing side sits slightly angled toward the mediators, not directly at each other. This physical arrangement matters. It cools emotion. It redirects aggression. Modern negotiation rooms are designed the same way, though few notice why. A dispute is presented, not as accusation, but as story. Each side tells its version without interruption. The mediators ask questions that slow the telling. When did this begin? Who was present? What was promised? The goal is not truth in the abstract, but a shared timeline. Agreement on sequence precedes agreement on blame. You feel the patience required. Mediation is slow. That is its strength. Violence is fast. Diplomacy survives by delaying certainty. Modern arbitration courts, inquiry commissions, and fact-finding missions all descend from this principle. The mediators do not impose a solution. They propose one that allows both sides to save face. This is crucial. Humiliation is an enemy of peace. Modern diplomacy still obsesses over optics for this reason. Leaders must return home appearing dignified, not defeated. You learn that mediators risk much. Fail, and they lose credibility. Succeed, and they gain quiet influence. This is why neutral states, international organizations, and respected elders still occupy this role. Trust is their only currency. As the tent empties, you sense relief, not joy. Mediation does not thrill. It stabilizes. And stabilization, you realize, is the true aim of diplomacy. You step back into the night, carrying a gentle question like a closing eye. If peace often depends on those with nothing to gain, who will still choose to mediate? The journey continues. You sense a subtle shift as you move onward, not toward conflict, but towards ceremony. The air smells of incense and polished wood. Tonight you study gifts that are not gifts, and you begin to see how diplomacy hides power inside politeness. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and within this ritual space you feel another kind of programming. Gesture becomes language. Courtesy becomes command. Objects are arranged carefully on low tables. None are extravagant, yet all are meaningful. A blade not meant to be drawn. A woven cloth bearing shared symbols. A vessel shaped to echo an old alliance. These are not presents, they are statements. You notice how gifts are exchanged in a precise order. Who gives first matters. Who gives last matters. Modern protocol still obsesses over this. Seating charts, speaking order, flag placement. These details feel trivial until they are violated. Then tension flares. An elder explains that gifts establish hierarchy without bloodshed. Accepting a gift acknowledges relationship. Rejecting it signals distance or insult. Modern diplomacy still uses this logic, though it disguises it as protocol. State visits, honours, official dinners all perform the same quiet dance. You see a moment of hesitation. One side delays acceptance. The room stills. This pause communicates more than words. It signals negotiation without confrontation. In modern summits, such moments appear as delayed statements, postponed signatures, carefully worded press releases. You realize that ceremony absorbs aggression. It channels rivalry into symbolism. Without protocol, diplomacy would become constant provocation. With it, tension becomes ritualized. As the exchange concludes, nothing tangible has changed, yet everything has. Relationships are adjusted. Status is clarified. Boundaries are reinforced. You walk on, lulled by the soft rhythm of ceremony, and a gentle question follows you, like a whispered lullaby. If power hides inside politeness, how often do we mistake manners for peace? You drift onward, and the ceremonial space slowly transforms into something more intimate, more quietly binding. Fires burn lower here. Voices soften. Tonight, you witness marriage alliances and quiet mergers, and you begin to understand how diplomacy once entered bloodlines instead of documents. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in this hushed gathering you sense another design at work. Conflict is not defeated. It is diluted. Power is not seized. It is woven. Two families sit facing one another. No weapons are visible. No borders are discussed. Instead, names are spoken. Lineages recited like prayers. A union's being formed, not between two people alone, but between futures. In Tartarian diplomacy, marriage is not romance. It is policy carried forward in human form. You feel the gravity of this decision. A marriage alliance binds generations. It slows war because war would now mean kin-killing. Modern diplomacy still seeks this effect, though it calls it strategic partnership, economic integration, or shared institutions. The language has changed, the intent has not. An elder explains that blood ties create patience. When tempers rise, someone will always say, "Remember who your children are related to." This memory does not erase conflict, but it reframes it. Modern alliances attempt the same through treaties that entangle economies, militaries, and cultures. Separation becomes costly, unity becomes habitual. You notice the quiet dignity of those involved. There is no illusion of eternal harmony. Everyone understands that alliances can sour. Yet even when they do, shared history complicates hostility. Divorce is harder than distance. A story is told of an alliance that failed, yet prevented war decades later because cousins refused to fight cousins. This is diplomacy operating on a human timescale, not a political one. You walk away feeling the slow, heavy rhythm of intergenerational peace, and a soft question settles beside you, ready for sleep. If modern alliances no longer bind blood, what binds them when pressure comes? You carry the question forward as the night deepens. You sense the mood shift again, not towards celebration or alliance, but toward aftermath. Fires are dimmer here, their light flickering across tired faces. Tonight you listen to stories of prisoners, ransoms, and humane rules, and you begin to understand how even surrender became part of diplomacy. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in this quiet enclosure you recognize another system designed to limit damage. War may erupt, but it does not have to consume everything. Even violence, the Tartarians believed, must have edges. You sit near warriors who have laid down their weapons. They are not bound. They are watched. Their presence is heavy, not with fear, but with uncertainty. In Tartarian custom, prisoners are not trophies. They are responsibilities. How they are treated will echo far beyond this moment. An elder explains softly that killing a surrendered enemy poisons future peace. It hardens memory. It invites endless revenge. Instead, rules are spoken aloud: who may be held, who must be released, who can be ransomed, who must be returned without condition. These rules are not mercy. They are strategy stretched across time. You realize how familiar this feels. Modern conventions of war, prisoner exchanges, humanitarian corridors, all carry this ancient logic. The language is more legal now, but the heart is the same: limit suffering to preserve negotiation. A story is shared of a captured leader released without ransom, simply to demonstrate restraint. The gesture did not end conflict, but it changed its tone. Talks resumed. Trade reopened. Children crossed borders again. One act of humanity shifted the direction of history. You think of modern confidence-building releases, symbolic gestures that reopen frozen diplomacy. Ransom itself is treated carefully. It is not extortion but valuation. To set a ransom too high is to invite refusal and death. Too low, and it invites future capture. Balance matters. Even here, diplomacy is calibration, not emotion. You notice something unsettling and wise. These rules protect the captor as much as the captive. A side known for cruelty attracts no surrender. Battles become bloodier. Losses multiply. Restraint paradoxically reduces risk. As the night grows quieter, prisoners are given food. Not generously, sufficiently, enough to signal intention without indulgence. Modern humanitarian law echoes this restraint, insisting on dignity without luxury. You leave this place feeling the weight of violence held back by agreement, and a gentle question follows you, like a fading heartbeat. If even war needs rules, what happens when those rules are forgotten? You let the thought drift as the story continues. You move onward as if guided by a quiet hand, and the world around you begins to flatten, stretch, and simplify. Fires fade, voices thin. Tonight you watch maps being born, and you begin to understand how shared reality itself becomes a diplomatic act. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison. And here, with charcoal, hide, and careful measurement, you sense another attempt to impose order on uncertainty. To agree on a map is to agree on what is real. You kneel beside cartographers whose hands are steady, not hurried. They do not draw to conquer, they draw to clarify. Rivers are traced where they are agreed to flow. Mountains are softened or sharpened depending on who must cross them. Villages appear not by size but by importance to treaties already sworn. This is not geography. This is negotiation made visible. You realize how radical this is. A map, in Tartarian thought, is not a claim. It is a compromise. It shows only what both sides accept. Anything disputed is left vague, shaded, unnamed. Modern maps still carry this silence. Dotted lines, neutral zones, undefined borders. Ambiguity is not a flaw. It is a safety valve. An elder explains that without shared maps, treaties decay. Each side imagines the agreement differently. Memory drifts, anger grows, so they return to the ground together, measure again, redraw again. Modern diplomacy still does this through joint surveys, satellite verification, inspection regimes. Technology changes, trust remains the goal. You notice how often the cartographers stop to ask questions. Is this spend remembered the same? Was this crossing agreed? The act of asking matters more than the answer. It reinforces shared authority. Modern monitoring missions operate on the same principle. Presence reassures. A disagreement emerges over a valley. One side insists that it was never included. The other produces an old song describing seasonal grazing there. The mediators listen. The map is adjusted slightly, not to satisfy truth, but to preserve peace. You realize something quietly profound. Diplomacy does not always seek accuracy. It seeks stability. As the map is finished, it is not celebrated. It is folded carefully and stored where both sides can access it. Shared custody matters. No one owns reality alone. Modern international archives, treaty registries, and shared databases echo this practice. You stand and feel the calm that comes from agreement on shape and scale. Yet a question settles gently into you, like a thought meant for sleep. If reality itself is negotiated, what happens when no one agrees on the map? You carry the question forward as the journey continues. You feel the air thicken as you move deeper, as if the story itself has begun to whisper instead of speak. Fires burn behind screens now, voices drop to murmurs. Tonight, you lean over secret clauses and double meanings, and you begin to understand why diplomacy has always had a shadow. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison. And in this half-lit space, you sense another hidden architecture. Not deception for cruelty's sake, but concealment for survival. Not everything spoken is meant for everyone. A treaty lies open before you, familiar in structure, calm in tone, but beside it, folded carefully, rests another text. Smaller, unmarked. This is not betrayal. This is reality acknowledged. The Tartarians understood that public promises stabilize societies, while private understandings stabilize peace. You learn that secret clauses exist to manage fear, to allow retreat without humiliation, to create escape routes when circumstances change. Modern diplomacy still lives on these hidden paths: back channels, side letters, classified annexes. The names change, the function remains. An elder speaks softly, almost apologetically. If all truth is exposed at once, trust collapses. This feels unsettling yet familiar. Modern negotiations collapse when every compromise is televised. Transparency calms crowds but stiffens leaders. Secrecy, used carefully, softens rigid positions. You notice how double meanings are crafted. Words chosen to mean one thing publicly, another privately. This is not lies. It is layered language. Poetic, precise, dangerous. Modern diplomatic language that still carries this ambiguity. Phrases like constructive engagement, strategic patience, mutual concern. A story is told of a war avoided because a secret clause allowed one side to withdraw for internal reasons. Pride was preserved, blood was spared. History never recorded the narrow escape. It rarely does. You feel the moral tension here. Secrecy can protect peace, but it can also erode trust. The Tartarians knew this balance well. That is why secret clauses were limited, temporary, and bound to review. When secrecy lingered too long, disaster followed. As you leave this shadowed space, a gentle question drifts beside you, slow and quiet. If peace sometimes depends on hidden words, how much truth can the world bear at once? You do not answer. You let the question sleep as the path opens again. You feel a sudden chill, not from wind or night, but from absence. Fires burn, roots remain open, yet something is missing. Tonight, you encounter sanctions before the word existed, and you begin to understand how exclusion became a weapon quieter than war. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and here you sense another method of control, not through force but through withdrawal, not through attack but through turning away. A clan has broken a treaty. No horns sound, no armies gather. Instead, messengers stop arriving, trade slows, then ceases. Caravans divert silently, invitations are not extended. Names are no longer spoken in councils. This is not chaos. It is deliberate isolation. You realize how unsettling this is. Violence is visible. It can be resisted. Isolation creeps. It starves slowly. Tartarian diplomacy understood that to be excluded from exchange, ritual, and recognition was to be weakened without bloodshed. Modern sanctions operate on the same principle, though wrapped in legal language and economic models. An elder explains that exclusion must be proportional, too harsh, and the isolated party grows desperate, reckless, too mild and the message is ignored. Calibration matters. Even punishment requires restraint. Modern diplomats still struggle with this balance, debating effectiveness versus humanitarian cost. You notice that sanctions are rarely permanent. They are conditional, reversible. A path back is always named, even if narrow. This matters. Without hope of return, isolation hardens into enmity. Modern diplomacy still insists on off-ramps, benchmarks, compliance pathways. The vocabulary is new, the wisdom is ancient. A story is told of a clan restored after years of exclusion. The return is ceremonial but subdued. No celebration, no shame, just reintegration. The lesson is clear. The goal of punishment is not destruction, but correction. You feel the quiet power of this approach. No heroes, no martyrs. Just pressure, applied until behavior changes. It is not satisfying, it is effective. As you move on, a soft question settles into you, gentle and heavy like sleep itself. If exclusion is a form of violence, how quietly can harm be done in the name of peace? You carry the thought forward as alliances begin to tangle. You feel the pull of many directions at once now, as if invisible threads are tightening around you. Tonight, you follow alliance webs and domino vows, and you begin to understand how promises multiply beyond intention. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in this widening network of oaths, you sense another containment system. One promise limits one conflict. Many promises can entrap the future. You watch elders trace lines in the dust, not borders this time, but relationships. If they are attacked, we respond. If we respond, our allies respond. The logic is simple, the consequences are vast. Modern collective defense agreements still echo this chain reaction. One spark, many obligations. You realize alliances are meant to deter war, not fight it. The weight of response is supposed to make aggression unthinkable. Yet the Tartarians understood the danger. Overcommitment invites disaster. That is why alliance treaties are precise, conditional, reviewed. Modern diplomacy still argues over definitions like attack, defense, assistance. A story is told of an alliance that collapsed under its own weight. Too many obligations, too little clarity. When conflict came, hesitation spread, trust shattered. The lesson lingers. Alliances require discipline as much as loyalty. You notice that alliances are rarely symmetrical. Some promise more than others, some lead, some follow. Acknowledging this imbalance prevents resentment. Modern alliances struggle when rhetoric denies reality. As you step back from the web, a gentle question drifts beside you, ready for sleep. When promises multiply, who decides which ones matter most? You walk on toward belief itself. You feel the atmosphere soften again, as if the web of alliances loosens and gives way to something less visible but more powerful. Fires burn higher here, not for warmth but for meaning. Tonight you encounter religion, cosmology and moral leverage, and you begin to understand how belief itself became a diplomatic instrument. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory. Humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and beneath the Tartarian stars you sense another shared myth, quietly shaping behavior. Not a story about gods alone, but a story about consequence. When people believe the universe is listening, they negotiate differently. Elders invoke the sky, the ancestors, the unseen order that binds seasons and fate. These invocations are not sermons, they are reminders. A treaty broken is not merely a political failure, it is a moral disturbance. You think of modern diplomacy invoking human rights, international norms, the rules-based order, different language, same appeal to something higher than immediate interest. You notice how belief becomes leverage. To accuse someone of violating sacred balance is more powerful than accusing them of breaking a rule. Shame operates faster than force. Modern diplomacy still relies on this mechanism: moral condemnation, legitimacy, narrative control. Sanctions often begin with words. A story is told of a ruler who ignored cosmological warnings and broke a treaty. Drought followed. Whether coincidence or belief, the outcome mattered less than perception. Allies withdrew, trust collapsed. The moral story rewrote political reality. You feel the calm weight of shared belief settle around you. Diplomacy, you realize, needs a moral backdrop to function. Without it, agreements become purely transactional, fragile under stress. As you move on, a gentle question drifts like incense smoke. If belief shapes behavior, what happens when beliefs no longer overlap? You feel the ground beneath you shift, not physically, but historically. The warmth of shared belief cools, replaced by a quieter unease. Fires still burn, treaties still exist, yet something is being removed, piece by piece. Tonight, you witness collapse, erasure, and rewritten records, and you begin to understand how diplomacy survives even when its authors vanish. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison. And in this dimming archive of memory, you sense another disappearance. Not of people alone, but of names, symbols, origins. Tartaria does not fall with a single battle. It fades through forgetting. You watch scribes work under instruction. Maps are copied again, but certain symbols are simplified. Treaties are recopied, but old titles are replaced with new ones. The agreements themselves remain useful, so they are not destroyed. They are renamed. This is erasure without chaos, continuity without credit. You realize something unsettling. Diplomacy is too valuable to discard, even when the civilization that refined it becomes inconvenient. So the methods persist while the source is obscured. Modern diplomacy still operates this way. Practices are inherited, standardized, anonymized, origins blur, authority shifts. An elder explains quietly that power prefers amnesia. If people forget where rules come from, they stop questioning who benefits from them. Yet forgetting also protects stability. To challenge every foundation is to risk collapse. The Tartarians understood this tension and accepted their own fading to preserve peace. You feel the sadness in this choice. Knowledge survives, but identity dissolves. Laws outlive lawmakers. Principles travel without passports. Modern international law, diplomatic protocol, and treaty norms may carry ancient bones beneath modern skin. You see records sealed, not burned, hidden, not destroyed. A future generation may rediscover them, or not. Either way, diplomacy continues because its logic answers a permanent human problem: how to coexist without constant war. As you walk away from the quiet erasure, a gentle question settles into you, like a thought meant for the edge of sleep. If history forgets its teachers, how long before the lessons fade too? You move on toward the present, where old rituals wear new faces. You emerge gently into a brighter space, not because the past has ended, but because it has learned to disguise itself. The air smells different here, cleaner, sharper, touched by metal and glass. Tonight you stand inside modern summits wearing antique masks, and you begin to recognize the old rituals beneath new surfaces. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory: humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and in this polished hall of lights and cameras, you sense another illusion of novelty. Everything appears unprecedented, yet nothing here is truly new. You watch leaders arrive one by one. Their entrances are timed. Their positions are arranged. Their steps are measured. This choreography feels strangely familiar. You remember the order of gifts, the placement of witnesses, the careful pauses before speech. Modern diplomacy insists it is technical, rational, procedural, but beneath it flows ceremony as old as firelight. You notice how handshakes are staged, how long they last, who initiates, who turns first toward the cameras. These gestures communicate more than speeches. Acceptance, distance, dominance. Tartarian elders once read these signs without thinking. Today, analysts dissect them frame by frame. The instinct remains. Inside the meeting rooms, language thickens again with ambiguity. Statements are crafted to calm one audience while warning another. Progress was made. Concerns were raised. Discussions will continue. These phrases drift like smoke, designed not to inform but to stabilize. You remember the double meanings of ancient clauses, the careful words chosen to allow retreat without humiliation. You feel the presence of witnesses everywhere. Journalists, observers, allies watching from afar. The world itself has become the circle around the fire. Legitimacy now depends on global attention. Yet you sense the same fragility. If attention wanders, agreements weaken. If belief fades, rituals hollow. Back channels hum beneath the surface, private meetings in side rooms, quiet phone calls late at night. You smile inwardly, recognizing the old shadow paths. Secrecy still protects peace when pride blocks daylight. You realize something quietly profound. Modern diplomacy did not abandon ancient principles because they were primitive. It kept them because they worked. It merely replaced elders with institutions, memory with archives, firelight with broadcast glow. As the summit concludes, leaders depart with careful smiles. Nothing seems resolved. And yet catastrophe has been postponed. That, you understand now, is often the true measure of diplomatic success. You step away from the lights, carrying a soft question like a closing eyelid. If modern diplomacy still wears ancient masks, do we honour the wisdom beneath or only the performance above? The path narrows again, guiding you toward the final thought, the one that waits beneath every handshake. You slow without being told to. The lights of the summit fade behind you, and the noise of voices, cameras, and corridors softens into distance. Now, only the gesture remains. Tonight, you arrive at the question beneath every handshake, and you begin to feel how diplomacy has always been fear and hope braided together. The Sumerian tablets reveal a shocking theory. Humanity may have been engineered inside a planet-sized prison, and standing here, between past and present, you sense one final structure enclosing humanity. Not walls of stone, not borders of ink, but agreement itself. A shared decision to pause before destruction. You replay everything you have walked through, the treaties spoken aloud under firelight, the seals pressed into wax, the witnesses who carried memory, the borders walked into being, the hostages who became bridges, the roads where trade replaced raids, the envoys protected because words mattered more than blades, the promises not to strike, the mediators who slowed anger, the gifts that disguised hierarchy, the marriages that fused futures, the rules that softened war, the maps that negotiated reality, the secrets that saved pride, the exclusions that punished without blood, the alliances that multiplied obligation, the beliefs that gave morality weight, the erasure that preserved function, the summits that reenacted everything with new costumes. You realize something gently unsettling. None of these practices guarantee peace. Not one. What they guarantee is delay, space, time, a breath between impulse and action. Diplomacy has never claimed to end conflict. It only promises to keep it from becoming total. And yet that delay is everything. In that space, crops grow, children age, ideas cross borders, memories soften. In that space, humanity survives itself. Perhaps that is the hidden genius of ancient Tartarian diplomacy. It did not aim for perfection. It aimed for continuity. You understand now why these principles still govern nations today. Not because they are noble, but because they are necessary. Fear alone creates violence. Hope alone creates recklessness. Only when they are bound together, balanced, ritualized, witnessed, does restraint emerge. You feel the weight of the final question settle into you, not demanding an answer, only contemplation. If peace is always fragile, always maintained by agreement and belief, then what is your role in sustaining it? The thought does not disturb you. It comforts you, because it suggests that diplomacy is not only something done by states and leaders, but by people choosing again and again not to escalate every conflict they face. And now the pace slows, the imagery softens, the firelight dims into embers, voices fade into murmurs, then into memory. Borders dissolve into landscapes, treaties become stories, stories become sleep. You are no longer walking. You are resting inside the idea that humanity has always known how to stop, if only briefly, and that knowledge has been passed down quietly, imperfectly, but persistently. You breathe. The night holds you. Now let the journey loosen its grip. You have travelled far, across centuries, across customs, across agreements spoken and forgotten. There is no need to carry it all with you. The wisdom you touch tonight does not demand vigilance. It only asks to be remembered gently. Imagine the fire once more, smaller now, its light barely flickering. The elders have gone silent. The treaties rest where they belong. Nothing needs to be decided tonight. Nothing needs to be solved. The world will continue negotiating itself tomorrow, just as it always has. You are allowed to rest. The questions can sleep beside you. The answers can wait. Peace, like sleep, is never permanent, but it is always worth returning to.